We'll have roll call.
Al Whitcomb.
Here.
Dale Sabadash.
Here.
Sam Milkis.
Here. At this time, I'd like to take a moment of silence for the remembering of the victims of 9/11. Thank you. Okay, public comment. Anybody in the public would like to have any comments at this? I don't see any hand online.
Oh, there's a Bonnie Fowler online, but she doesn't have her hand raised.
Okay. All right, so we'll go on to the approval of minutes of May the 30th. Can we have a motion to approve those minutes?
I move their approval.
Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Motion is second. Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Discussion of and approval of an increase in poll workers' training pay.
Yes, so our poll workers come to 2 trainings every election season. We have the voting machine training and then the election school training that's for the judges and inspectors. We have, from the beginning of time that I can find records, paid them $6 per class that they attend. And the election code states that that's the minimum. We must pay them at least $6. I think after all these years and all this time, it would be nice to increase the amount of pay that we give them to come to training. As you know, hopefully a little encouragement that more and more will come. So I would like to increase that to $10 a training class, if that's acceptable.
Is that covered by the federal funds?
It will be covered by the grant, yes.
Anybody have any thoughts on that?
Well,
Can we have a motion to approve the workers' training pay from $6 to $10?
make a motion to increase it from $6 to $10. I think that's very reasonable.
Wait a second.
I'll second that.
Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Next is a discussion. Oh, I wanted to mention that we're going to change 7 and 8 around. Director's update is going to be prior to request for executive session. So it's a change in the agenda. We now have a discussion on approval to move the polling locations in East Pennsboro 8 and 10.
Yeah, so 8 and 10 were located at the East Pennsboro Elementary School. And they would like to, after talking with the superintendent, they would feel more comfortable having East Pennsboro 8 and 10 located at the high school. And I did provide you with a map there. It's the same campus. It's just a different building. We will send the voters in 8 and 10 new ID cards that tells them that they vote at the high school now and not the elementary school. And of course, we'll have plenty of signage leading them to the high school
That's
as well.
the big thing, signage.
Yes, we'll put up lots of signs, getting them there, but it is on the same campus, which is nice. So no one's having to drive, miles out of their way or anything like that. But just for security reasons and some different reasons that the superintendent discussed with me, he'd like to move it to that building. It's actually better than the elementary school. It's a huge gym. So it's going to be great for both the voters and the poll workers.
So 8 and 10 both will go to that.
Yes, and they were co-located before at the elementary school as well. Yeah.
That's always a question, which one, am I 8 or am I 10?
Yeah, well, this way, with this location, they're actually going to have 2 separate entrances into the gym, which is great. Before they did not. So as long as people read signs, we should be good.
Bethany, I'm
Yeah.
just assuming that this is compliant with the Disabilities Act.
Yes, we went and did the survey on Friday. Everything is ADA compliant, plenty of parking. It's a wonderful facility to have polling
Big
places.
improvement, actually.
Yes, actually, it is an improvement. Yes, so it's working out well for both school and for us.
So can we have a motion to approve that move?
I'll move to change the location for East Pennsboro 8 and 10 from the elementary school to the high school.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I will second that.
Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. We're ready for the director update.
Okay, so I have a few things for you here. The first few things are just sort of some housekeeping that I wanted to discuss with you. So the primary, which I know won't affect you because you will no longer be my board of elections, unfortunately, next year, but I did want to bring it up. Originally, a presidential primary actually happens in April as opposed to our normal municipal or gubernatorial years that happen in May. The date for the presidential primary was April 23rd. There is lots of talk of changing that for various reasons. Some of the dates that have been thrown out there are March 19th, March 26th, and April 2nd. The one I'm hearing the most about seems to be the one that is out and about is April 2nd. So
That's what I thought it already got changed.
it has not. So we have to wait until they're saying October is when, it has to be voted on. The governor's got to approve it. There's all sorts of steps. It sounds like October might be the earliest we know when the change will be, but April 2nd seems to be the most popular. I'm not sure that that'll stick, but those are the dates that we've heard. Obviously, we will let everyone know as soon as we know. That does affect our polling locations. Are they available these days? It affects our poll workers. Are they available and around those days? So there's a lot to go into it. So the sooner we know, the better. Unfortunately, I don't have any say in how fast they move there, but those are the dates. So and our communications department is aware of this. So of course, as soon as we have a date, they'll blast it out everywhere as well, just as I'm sure the state will and everything. But I just kind of wanted to give you an update on that.
So that'll be interesting to see how that works out.
Yeah, a decision sooner rather than later would be great. I've got 1,000 poll workers and 118 buildings to figure out. And so yes, the sooner the better. The other thing I wanted to talk about, which we have talked about before, is the life cycle of a voter. In your packet, I provided you with that document again. I don't know if anyone in the room needs one as well. So Mr. Cobb brought to our attention some students at Dickinson that were no longer students there, according to his document. And unfortunately, while I understand that they are no longer students and are registered at Dickinson University, this is the process in which voters become inactive and then become canceled. And there is no other way that I am legally allowed to remove voters other than this process. Now, one thing Dickinson has done is I've talked with the president and some of the other individuals there that deal with the students and student life, is we have included in their graduation packet, and have for 4 years now, a voter request to cancel your registration. If anyone wants to see that, you can pass that around too. And that's included in their graduation packet to sort of encourage them, hey, you're moving back home or whatever, please cancel your voter registration with Cumberland County. Now, whether they fill that out or not, I obviously can't force them or, force their hand in that, but that is a way that voters can remove themselves from the rolls instead of going through the more lengthy process that the law allows. So that is something we've been doing. We do it with Shippensburg University as well.
Okay.
Okay.
May I respond since that was my letter?
Yes, go ahead.
Hi, my name is John Cobb for the record, and I live in Lemoyne. And I appreciate Bethany's perspective on this. However, looking at both HAVA, NVRA, Pennsylvania state legislation, as well as the Supreme Court ruling of Husted, Ohio Secretary of State versus A. Philip Randolph Institute. Okay, so I've been researching. This is Judge Alito's perspective on the NVRA and the mailing of notifications. States may use whatever trigger they think best, period. The NVRA, National Voter Registration Act, contains no reliable indicator or prerequisite to sending notices. So that you can send notices when you prefer to, and it doesn't have to be only if someone doesn't vote, or if you look at the NCOA report from the post office, nor if you only look at, say, ERIC, because ERIC is not really covered in statute, right? So if you're using relocation and address change information from ERIC, that's really outside of what you just stated. However, it's well within National Voter Registration Act, as well as the Supreme Court ruling from 2018. And so really the information I provided follows further in that Supreme Court ruling, and this was in regards to Ohio. Ohio removes the registrants at issue on a permissible ground, change of residence. The failure to return a notice and the failure to vote simply serve as evidence that a registrant has moved, not as the grounds itself for removal. Meaning that the evidence that I've provided, which is in fact a comparison of the current student enrollment records versus this current voter registration rolls, all of them enrolled at the university at a specific address. That comparison ended up with 373 people that are not students, not living at the university. And so that is evidence, not to have them removed, not to have them necessarily set inactive, but evidence that can be used to send, I believe from your document, it says the address verification notice. So really all I'm asking for is that the process, that evidence has been provided that they've moved, that the county go ahead and send notification to them, a notice to them saying, please confirm your address. And if they do not return that notice, then move to the 5-year notification process, set them inactive and follow the standard processes. So I'm providing evidence, not a request to cancel, delete, or remove. I'm asking to provide the processes that are currently in place following the National Voter Registration Act.
I would say the key thing you said there was from that Supreme Court decision that the states may decide how they do that. We get our guidance and direction in the Department of State. The Department of State has provided the NCOA, the ERIC, there's 5-year notices, all those different processes that are on this form. And that's what we follow in Cumberland County is the Department of State runs elections and provides the election code. So that's what we follow. And so if the state decides that we should be doing extra or, those types of things, then that would be different. But as of right now, we are following the law and what we are supposed to do to begin the process to remove voters. And actually, I did check through your list, and some of the people on the list do not go to Dickinson anymore, but still live in Carlisle. So they are registered voters and still voting in this area. But again, I wouldn't want to see that, we're picking on a certain group of people, just Dickinson College or something like that. I mean, that's sort of what that looks like. But again, I think if the state gives us more direction on how, if they want us to do more than that, that's fine. But again, we're following the law and what the election code says on how to begin the process to remove a voter.
Okay, so first off, I'd like to respond that this is not selective enforcement. The reason I looked at Dickinson was because I had availability to look at their student registration rolls or their current student rolls. Number one. Number two, there's about 1,300 students registered at a single address. So if you do any sort of minor data analysis, it pops up that, holy cow, there's a lot of people registered at one single address at Dickinson College. So you say, geez, let me investigate further. Right, of course, if they're students. If they're in Carlisle and they're living someplace else, then they really should be registered someplace else if they're not students. Reasonably so, and I'm confident you have processes in place for that. But going back to the current U.S. Department of Justice question and answers in regards to the National Voter Registration Act of 1993, question 11 or clarification question: do states have to use the NCOA process to initiate the notice process? The U.S. Department of Justice says no, states do not. For example, some general programs involve a state undertaking a uniform mailing of voter registration cards or sample ballots or other election materials to all voters in a jurisdiction, then using information obtained from returned non-deliverable mail as the basis for correcting voter registration records or for initiating the notice process. Another example involves programs where states initiate the notice process based on information showing that a voter has not voted in elections nor made contact over some period of time. This is not prohibited by the NVRA since it relies on NVRA notice processes. And the point being is that there's multiple reasons to utilize the notice process. The notice process must be used if you're going to try to remove someone, right? Because that initiates the 5-year clock or the 2 election cycle clock. But there is no limitation in federal statute. That's item number 2. Item number 3 is if the state runs our elections and not the county, well, then our conversation here is moot.
Well, that's happened quite a few times where I've told you that you're directing it to the wrong group. I don't make changes in the election code. I can't, our board can't. I've told you multiple times that your argument's with the wrong group. And this is one of them. And we do actually do an NCA process once a year, and we do a 5-year notice process once a year. And if anything being sent to a voter comes back undeliverable, an ID card, a ballot, anything, that does trigger them as inactive in our system, and they get a second notice to say, hey, what's going on? So we do all of those things as required by law, and that is on my flow chart here. So if there is something additional, as I said, that you feel we should be doing or that the state should be doing, then that's who you need to take up your argument with.
Is there any state code or county code that illustrates that point? Because I haven't been able to find anything that says the sole authority does not rest in this room.
I think it's one of the responsibilities delegated to the executive branch, and then our governor appoints a secretary of the Department of State, and they have various rules and regulations that they impose on every county board of election. It's not that we disagree with any of your concerns or questions. It's that we don't get to tell the state, how things are done. The state imposes those rules on us. And I think what Bethany's trying to say is that you might get more traction if you directed your questions and concerns to the Department of State in lieu of the Board of Elections. Again, it's not that we disagree with the points you're raising. We just simply don't have the authority to take that action.
I'd like to see that in statute because I believe that is not correct. I believe this board and the Bureau of Elections has complete authority to run based on the Department of Justice, based on the Supreme Court, based on HAVA, NVRA, and Pennsylvania statute. The County Board of Elections has the ability to make these decisions and to run any sort of routine and exceptional voter registration management activities, maintenance activities that they deem appropriate.
I think we'll take that.
But yes, and I'm done. I've made my last point. Thank you. Thank you very much for your time.
Okay, any other?
Yeah, that's all I have.
Okay, so we have a request to go into executive session. So at this time, can we have a motion to go into executive session? And we will not have, we're not going to have any action coming out, right?
Well, you may wish to, it's certainly within the board's discretion, but you may wish to
Adjourn.
conclude this meeting, and then there will be no action taken as a result of the executive session.
So let's do that. If we have a motion to adjourn.
I move to adjourn. Regular session.
We have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? All in favor? Aye. Aye. We are adjourned, and we will go into executive session. If there's anything that comes out of the executive session, we do.
You would address all the next board meeting.
Okay, thank you.